Well, thank you for taking time out to talk all things ultrasound. I first caught the film back on its festival circuit. I think it was literally last year's Frightfest. It was the first film that went into my Frightfest journal. So it's sort of been in my mind for a little while. And I mean, the story began as a graphic novel. What was it about the story that sort of spoke to you and made you decide that this was what you wanted to not only make into a film, but to make into your first feature film?
Well, it was a little bit of a process because I'd picked up the first book, which was published by Breakdown Press in the UK. And I didn't really know what the story was going to be about. It was just the very beginning. And then a year later, in 2016, I got the second book from Breakdown. And at the time, it was called Generous Bosom. So when I had read the two books, I was really intrigued. It ended kind of on a cliffhanger, and they had just introduced the facility, Connor Steckschulte, the writer and artist. And at that point, I reached out to him just to see what was going on and how much more there was. And he said that it was about half done, and that he had the whole thing kind of in his head, which was good enough for me. And we got started, and he wrote the screenplay and then finished the third and fourth book. So it was a little backwards, but I was excited and inspired by the material. The experience of reading the first two books kind of informed in my mind what the story was and the tone, and it had a lot of themes that I was interested in. Also, because it was my first feature, I wanted something that might be manageable, and we could shoot pretty quickly. So we winded up doing this in 19 days. And yeah, I feel like it was a good fit for me.
Yeah. I mean, graphic novels themselves are a visual method of storytelling. Did the art in the novel sort of inform your visual style at all?
It did. And they just published the complete book. It's all 4 volumes in one book from Fantagraphics. So you can, you'll have a chance to see it. It's going to be kind of readily available. But Connor did a lot of really interesting things with printing, and he teaches printing actually at university. And he would do things like he would paint on one side of a page and then scan the back side, so it looks like it's bleeding through. And he had a lot of very interesting layers and textures, and he was able to do things that really fit the themes in the story. And that kind of inspired me with the filmmaking, although they were very different techniques. But he used kind of everything possible in the visual medium that he had. So I tried to do that too, and kind of be creative with how to shoot it.
I mean, I think there's sort of several scenes that are sort of set in or sort of walking through liminal spaces. How does that come into play with the story that you're telling?
In relation to the graphic novel, or just
in relation to the film? So there's a lot of sort of the hotel corridors and the facility, there's corridors and that. So there's a lot of these sort of like in between places that are there.
Yeah. I mean, I love those kind of spaces. And then also we tried very hard to create repetition and kind of return to certain themes, visual themes like hallways and the rainy night, and kind of return to these elements that you're talking about. And then, at the end, there's kind of a climactic ending, but throughout we tried to kind of install them, I guess, so that you could always go back to those visual signifiers.
I mean, similarly, there's a lot of shots of windows and mirrors, like either into or out of, or both of them within one shot. Was that another sort of way for you to sort of reference to the audience that there's perhaps more going on than meets the eye?
Yeah, and surveillance, and one of our big set pieces is the observation room with a rectangular window, and kind of you can't see what's on the other side of the mirror. And we tried to kind of incorporate that as much as we could.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great shot, I think, when Art visits Glenn to tell him about Cindy, where I think Art's sitting down and Glenn's stood up, but you see his face through the little corner
Yeah,
in the mirror. So I think,
that was a happy accident.
I mean, I've done a little bit of film, filming into mirrors and reflective surfaces terrifies me, but I guess it didn't faze you guys.
I was just worried we'd see the camera in some of them, but we managed to. Matthew Rudenberg was our cinematographer who I worked with for many years, and he was pretty aware. He paid attention, so we didn't get to see ourselves too much.
And at its core, this film, it's a very mysterious narrative. When you were planning it out and trying to figure it out together during the writing process, how and during the editing process as well, I guess, how hard was it to sort of decide when to reveal certain things and when to pull back? Because obviously you don't want to show your hand too soon, but also you don't want to leave it too long because you want to keep the viewer on the hook.
Yeah, that was one of the most challenging elements. I think you put your finger on it, because once I knew the whole story, I was no longer receiving new information. So it became my responsibility to figure out where the audience was the whole time, but also understand where the characters were the whole time, because they're not always in the same place as far as understanding. So that was a big kind of puzzle, was trying to get that right. And the narrative structure is very nested. So there's like stories inside of stories inside of stories, like a Russian doll or something. So it was on set, we benefited from a really great script supervisor. And the actors I know were relying on her. Her name is Kat, and she did a wonderful job. So it was a big puzzle, and parsing out the information was important, because I didn't want the audience to feel like they were too far behind. So.
And I think it's one of those films that sort of benefits from a rewatch. How important do you think it is when you're making a film that you are making something that people want to come back to?
I love those kind of movies. So for me, it felt natural, I guess, to make a film like that. But obviously, when you make it to the end of this film, and you go back to the beginning, you have all this new information. So when you see things, it's a completely different movie. I mean, I guess every film on a second watch is a different film, but with this one, with this story in particular, it changes everything and makes it, I think, just as good the second time, maybe better.
Yeah, definitely. So I rewatched it over the weekend with my husband, who hadn't seen it before, and it was quite nice, sort of knowing where it was going, and being able to pick up on a couple of things that maybe I'd sort of overlooked the first time around. So it's always nice when there is that reward for going back to a film.
Yeah, every department was kind of aware of it and started putting in, like, the production design team put in a lot of little Easter eggs that you wouldn't notice until you watched it a second time. So there's a lot of fun stuff there.
I think the other element that really stood out to me is, the sound design and score. They always sort of seem to work together to almost create some sort of like trance fugue state for the viewer, which I guess is plays nicely into what's going on. Or was it intentional that to sort of like disorientate the viewer like the cast?
Yeah, I mean, once we had the name Ultrasound, I think it kind of became a theme, and we really wanted to embrace it and have like a very full score with lots of production design and with lots of sound design. And the team really worked together. They were in separate cities, but Zach Engel made the score in Maine and would send elements to Bob Burrito in Brooklyn, who was doing the sound design, and then they would share back and forth, and kind of, there's still scenes in the movie, and I'm not sure if it's score or sound design, but they did a really good job of working together, and kind of had the goal of making a very full audio experience.
Yeah, because there's definitely those instances where it's the sort of natural sound mixed in with like a machine sound, but then you've got like the synth and strings and stuff coming over as well. And it does sort of, I guess, in many ways, this film is a sci-fi, but it doesn't necessarily present itself as such. You know, there's no, you know, everything's not like bright white or anything. There's no sort of like dystopian thing. But I guess that a key signifier to that this is sort of within the sci-fi realm would be that sort of score, which is, you know, this mix of tech and nature sort of fighting against each other.
Yeah, I mean, that was really a lot of fun because it's such a big part of the narrative too. That these sounds are not always doing good. So yeah, we worked really hard to create different sounds for kind of different narrative elements as far as like these frequencies that are creating problems. So it was fun, and it was all done remotely because of COVID. So I think that I don't know, contributed something to the process.
Well, I guess it's like as much as these characters all sort of exist side by side, they are in a strange way isolated from one another and even from themselves. So I guess help, you know, in a way, doing the post during a pandemic, that would have sort of bled in like subconsciously. But again, it helps sort of sell those themes that are in there.
I think so. I mean, I'm one of those guys who likes to be in the room. Like, it's just the most fun to go to a sound mix or to go to a color session and sit in the room and look at things changing. So a lot of that was out the window. So working remotely, and I mean, we're doing this Zoom interview now. We've kind of all embraced it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously a big part of the story revolves around, you know, the idea of mind control and hypnotism. You know, have you or, you know, anyone close to you got any experiences? You know, have you ever been brave enough to go under?
I haven't, but I know that when Connor was in high school, he did have a friend get hypnotized at one of these kind of, you know, staged events where you go on stage and you come down hypnotized, and he was very convinced that his friend you know, was fully under. So I know that was an inspiration for him, and it was based on you know, a true life experience. Have you tried it?
I haven't. Would you ever do it?
I think I would, especially if there was a way to improve something, like if I was trying to quit smoking, or you know, I think that there are probably some pretty good uses, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a horrible arachnophobe, so I've always sort of said like I would like to go into like some sort of treatment if ever I had the money, and I guess hypnotism would be one way to curb that. But then I think, I don't know, just the idea of somebody sort of messing with my mind, I would always be like, what else did they do? You know, what else have they like filtered in there that I'm not aware of? And I think that's something that Ultrasound captures really well. I mean, the first time I watched it, you know, there's a couple of instances where like my stomach dropped, and like you realize what potentially might have been happening to some of these people, and they've got no recollection of it. It's, you know, it's horrifying. You know, it definitely deserves its sort of its horror label on the genre tags.
Yeah, that I got that feeling from the book too, and that I think that's a big part of what got me excited, you know, to see it as a film.
I think the first time I saw the film was on its festival run. I know that, you know, some of the films that you've produced, like Sunchoke and Beyond the Gates, they also sort of started life out on the festival circuit. You know, how do you think that those tours sort of help sort of lower budget indie projects?
I think it's tremendous, and especially genre festivals, because people really love these kind of movies, and come out and support them. And it's, for many films, it's the theatrical run, you know, by playing these festivals, you get, you know, the film is able to be seen on a big screen, and that's something special, I think. And then you know, also with the way films are marketed, it's you know, a lot of publicity kind of goes into getting an indie film out there, and festivals are really good at that. and promote independent filmmakers. And so I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think I've seen the Sunchoke, Ultrasound, and Beyond the Gates all as part of frightfest. So that it is,
Wow.
they are these platforms that do get these films, like you say, they do get them out there to people that might struggle to uncover them somewhere, buried like on a streaming service or something. It is nice that they're there. And I mean, festival, especially the genre festival audiences, once they see something and they like it, they will champion it, and they're sort of doing they're doing your marketing for you.
Yeah, it's a really special thing, and it's also just so much fun. Like, there's nothing better than going to a great festival and seeing 10 or 12 films that you wouldn't have seen otherwise, or maybe you're getting them a year early, which is really cool too. Yeah. So I'm all about it. I love going to festivals.
Yes, I'm sort of mentally preparing myself for this year's Frightfest at the moment. So
yeah, I do such a good job. It's the best.
Well, I mean, 70 horror films around a 3-year-old, it's a little bit tricky, but
oh, wow.
It is what it is. But I mean, what's now that Ultrasound is sort of out in a lot of territories, what's next for you?
I've been working on a project with Connor. I've been writing myself and reading scripts, and then I shoot a lot of short form stuff like commercials, and I work on a great show called Actors on Actors. That in the United States is on PBS and Variety.com. So I've been pretty busy, and I still read tons of comics. So I'm looking for the next great story to tell.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing what you make next.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you. Cool. Yes. Thank you. She behaved herself. It was
amazing.
I mean, I can sort of hear something happening down there. I think I heard like she wants an ice cream, but she's already had an ice cream. So
it sounds like my house.
Yeah, I think I heard the words, "You can ask mummy," and I'm going to have to be the bad guy that's like, "You've already had one."
Oh,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out. I really like the film. So I think it was literally the first one I watched because I saw Vincent's name pop up, and I was a really big fan of The Unsaid and Crimes and Punishment in Suburbia, which he did like donkeys years ago. I think even before it was like an Angel and stuff. So
it was amazing. He had so much experience. Like, he's not an old guy, but he's been acting since he was a toddler or something. Like, it's incredible, and it shows. Like, working with somebody like that was really phenomenal.
And he always, but the thing that sort of made this one stand out is I know that from his previous work, like I said, like The Unsaid is really dark, there's some really bleak places. Crimes and Punishment in Suburbia, again, it's got a lot going on. So I know that he tends to pick really interesting projects. So the fact that his name was attached was like, well, okay, I'm gonna, there's gonna be something about this. And thankfully I was right. So it all worked out. But yes, I'll let you get back to your day. I'm sure you've got a few more of these lined up, and I will wish you well. And maybe we'll meet at a genre festival at some point in the future.
That'd be wonderful. Okay. All right. Good luck with it.